Well, everybody, we're going to be talking about the absolute state of the industry. I know Kay has a point that she wanted to bring up about this, so I'm going to read you guys a little article here and then let Kay rant. That's what she does best. As we all know, the industry, at least in the Western world, is in a real shitty state. How shitty is it? Well, apart from all the bullshit that you hear about politics, pause shit, yada, 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 even excluding that, it is bad. Let's talk about how bad it is. Game Developers Conference happened, and GDC's annual State of the Game Industry survey reveals that a third of AAA game developers are working on live service games. Doesn't seem like big publishers are ready to give up on the live service chase just yet. Bring in that slop, daddy. We've expressed a certain creeping exhaustion with live service games more than once in these digital pages, and the catastrophic failure of Concord led to some predictions that the tide was finally turning against them. But maybe not, too. GDC's 2025 State of the Game Industry Report, should be called the Absolute State of the Game Industry Report, says that 33% of the AAA developers who responded to its annual survey are currently working on a live service game. Across all respondents, 16% said they're working on a live service game, indicative of the fact that they tend to be bigger budget affairs made by larger studios and publishers that can afford to develop and maintain them. Interestingly, only 13% of all responders said they'd be interested in making a live service game for their next release, while 42% said they would not. 29% said they didn't know or that it wasn't applicable. The GDC report describes the response as mixed, which is perhaps a little generous given that close to half have expressed a firm lack of interest in live service development. There's definitely some enthusiasm for it. Former Halo and Destiny producer Joe Tung, for instance, said in a 2024 interview that the free-to-play live service model is so much better for developers and players because, quote, you can think long-term in terms of what is best for the players. Tung's Theorycraft game studio is currently working on Supervive, a MOBA battle royale meets hero shooter that's currently in early access on Steam. Some survey respondents said they also value in live service games not only on the financial side, but also on the player experience and community building. Others, though, noted the concerns about the declining player interest, creative stagnation, predatory practices and microtransactions, and the risk of developer burnout. One of the biggest issues mentioned was market saturation, with many developers noting how tough it is to break through and build a sustainable player base. There is little doubt that live service game development can be risky and burdensome. Live service hits can, quote, be a lucrative, sustaining business model, as the GDC report says, but the risks of failure are high and the fallout can be brutal. Rocksteady reportedly underwent multiple rounds of layoffs after Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League failed to catch fire, and Concord Firewalk Studios was closed outright. Even when live service games are successful, they need to keep the wheels turning. Can be rough on the developers, as we noted in 2019. Shortly after reports of brutal crunch at Fortnite developer Epic Games came to light, live service games have trained players to expect a constant stream of new content, and only constant work can deliver it. The survey results don't paint the final definitive picture of the current state of the live service development. 58% of respondents came from the U.S., while the UK, Canada, and Australia account for another 16%. Lane Nooney, Associate Professor of Media, Culture, and Communications at NYU Steinhardt, pointed out on Blue Sky that the survey has no statistically significant respondents from China, and that only 2 non-Western nations accounted for more than 1% of the responses. The GDC surveys itself that some responses may overly represent the experience of developers in the West and may not always reflect the views of the global community at large. It's also notable that what exactly constitutes as a AAA developer isn't nailed down. Still, it seems unlikely that major studios will give up the quest to become the next Fortnite or Apex Legends, Warframe, Diablo 4, take your pick, anytime soon. The Concord disaster reportedly has Sony backing off on its big live service plans, but Suicide Squad publisher Warner aims to go even bigger on free-to-play and live service games to avoid volatile ups and downs of big budget game releases. Coupled with the high percentage of developers currently grinding away on them, it's probably fair to say live service games are going to be with us for a good while yet. So, Kay, I give the floor to you. What do you think about that? 1/3 of the quote-unquote AAA developers are working or are planning to work on live service games. We also have that, as well as we just talked about GTA. big rumors and a lot of pushes from developers saying that that game is going to cost, or they want it to cost, $100 American so that it could influence the rest of the industry. What do you have to say about all that?
Well, there's a few problems here. One, I mean, AAA is just really killing itself at this point. I don't understand why they would think that live service is good on a player perspective. Now, on a corporate perspective, it does make sense that they would want to stick with this. You have more job stability for the people in the studios because you're always working on these games. You can continue to roll out DLC and cosmetics and just like nickel and dime your customers, and so you'll have like a continual cash flow. Whereas with releasing a large AAA title, you work on the title for a while, release the game, and then if you have no plans after that, then there's no reason for the people to be there. So I think that a lot of these companies are freaking out because they've had to lay off a lot of their studios and they don't know how to make this industry more stable. And so they feel like they found the meal ticket. Well, if we are doing this where we have cycles where we're releasing DLC every so often, and we have this like hook for them where this is like a game that people play daily and they invest real world cash in it and everything, we'll be able to sustain our business even longer. So I think that's where their motivation comes from. But obviously, as gamers, none of us fucking want this shit. No one likes live service games, and especially when it starts to replace beloved games. For example, what happened with Suicide Squad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing studio, did such great games with Batman, and then they fucking convert to Justice League, the fucking Suicide Squad game, and everyone fucking hates it. And they have to walk it back and be like, "Oh, just jokes, bro. All the shit that happened in it, that's not real, right?" Because not only did they fuck it up with all the DEI and all that garbage shit, but no one wanted the live service game. And weren't they at one point saying that there was going to be like a Wonder Woman live service game as well?
I think that's still in development, but it's effectively in
Yeah.
production hell because we haven't heard
Yeah.
anything about it at all. Apart from it's announced.
So it's clear that people don't want this stuff. Now, I know we've seen success with things like Warframe. I know it's a contentious point, but I think the First Descendant isn't a failure because they just merely dropped in user base when an event was over. So I think it's kind of disingenuous to think that the First Descendant is suddenly a failure. It's totally normal for these games to have dips and have points that they raise up. And I'm sure if they do another event, they'll have more users again. So I see on an industry perspective why they want to do this because they just want to keep their studios going forever, and this is just easy for them. It's way easier than having to pump out big game ideas every few years. But I think it's ultimately going to wreck the AAA industry because indie is providing us all of these games that we've all been yearning for. They understand the things like our desire for movie-based type games with AA. They're making like all these retro type games as well. Right now we're in like a PS1 resurgence where people are making a bunch of games that are like remind us of the PS1 with horror and all this stuff. So indie is pretty much filling that gap, and they're taking a lot of the market share for all of this stuff right now. So I think they're in for a rude awakening. But the thing that worries me really about all of these trends, including the $100 GTA situation where you're trying to increase the price for a normal game, and let's be real, if any game is going to be able to set that standard, it is GTA, and I think that's why a lot of the industry is hoping that that's what happens. Um, you're going to see games that just fall into the slop, that just like they're not taking risks anymore, but it's in a different direction now. It's like we're not going to take risks in the like styles of games that we're creating. Every game that's AAA is just going to slowly convert into like, how do we create these online services for it to stretch it out, to make it so that people stick with our game longer? And that's what concerns me, is that I know that everything is a fad in gaming and we'll see different things come and go, but the whole like loot box, live service, all this kind of shit, it really concerns me that we're not going to see developers be creative anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They won't want to take risks because of all of the financial trouble they ended up in last year. So, overall, it's just very concerning to me how the industry is looking because I think they're all panicking, right? I think they're panicking. They're just trying to find a way to stay afloat, and they don't want to be one of the studios that has to completely wipe out. And they don't understand what gamers want in the end. And if you actually made games that people wanted, you would survive.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think my concern is there's a lot of writing on the wall, and if you put all the pieces together, I just don't see, unless they radically change course, how AAA in the West can survive. I think Indie will survive. I think a few AA teams in the West will survive. But AAA just really has their head so far up their ass with their politics, with their identity, and with just losing the plot and not knowing what's successful. I mean, you look at what happened with Blizzard in the past couple weeks since Trump got elected. Really, in response to Trump, like it has anything to do with them, the CEO of Activision Blizzard posted this message in Slack to be like they're still standing for DEI, just straight up saying like we're still gonna be paused and still put all this shit in our games. And it's like, I was telling you today because we watched Warcraft in anticipation for our show with Phoenix Press tomorrow. There was about a 10-year period, maybe even longer than that, maybe 15 years, where Blizzard were the kings of PC. You could associate a company with every platform. For example, like Rare with the N64 kind of thing. Neversoft with PlayStation. Blizzard for 15 years were the kings of PC gaming. They were PC gaming. And now they are a universal joke. And one of the core reasons that they are failing, they are now doubling down on in the face of absolute destruction. They haven't released their World of Warcraft subscriber numbers pretty much since Pandera, which was like, what at this point, like 2012, something like that. Like, it's insane. And they're just going down, 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 down. And then on top of that, I just can't. I mean, we're playing it so much, and I started playing it out of spite. That was my main motivator, was playing Marvel Rivals out of spite. Because I loved Overwatch in a gameplay standpoint. I love this style of game. No one else did this style of game. Overwatch was a evolution of Team Fortress 2, a hero shooter. Everyone else does like these first-person MOBAs where it's like one kill and you're dead, or they do Fortnite clones where you have to craft shit, and it's like disgusting. But Overwatch was really like the hero shooter, and it was, you could only go there. And I was spending years since Overwatch's downfall looking for an alternative. And China came in and was like, they had something and they fucking buried it in several different ways. Not only in the paused way, whatever you want to call it, DEI way, but also they buried it in terms of the gameplay, multiple gameplay changes. And then monetization. They got greedy, completely changed the whole monetization format in that game. And Overwatch 2 is such a shit show. So they're like, we're going to just, the entire Marvel Rivals design philosophy is don't do what Blizzard did. And I find that hilarious. And the game is so good. And now here you go. They're making money hand over fist. And because they're not being greedy about it. And there's so many reasons why the Western AAA industry is just failing. And Blizzard has ticked every single box. And a lot of these companies are ticking every single box. Look at BioWare, right? BioWare were the kings of RPG. They were the kings of narrative gaming. Because they weren't visual novels, they were actual games with stories that were more immersive and more effective than film was at the time. And now they're a joke, and they're in risk of closing down. And if they don't fucking have a huge hit with Mass Effect 4, they're done. So it's just everyone is so up their ass with their own politics, with their own greed, and they're just desperate to cling on to these huge moneymakers that they just can't see if they look a little bit in the other direction. If they just cut a few things and fucking give themselves a slap in the face, they will make money. That's all. They just have to go, this is oversaturated. Okay, if this is oversaturated, what are the fucking odds of you being a success? Look at it. Look at reality. You're entering a market that is oversaturated, live service games. You are going to be the success. What are you offering? Marvel Rivals entered it, but they were offering what Blizzard took away. What are you offering? Oh, what you're offering is politics that everyone hates because America proved that, like, overwhelmingly everyone is sick of this shit with the last election. Yeah, that'll go over well. Why? For a live service game, you have to have players dedicated and invested. They're only going to invest in one. Why would I leave Marvel Rivals for you if you're just going to jam shit down my throat, make ugly characters that are a chore to look at, and I'm going to have to pay way more money than I would in Marvel Rivals? What's the selling point here?
they already broke people's trust when they did things like change McCree's name, when they
Yeah,
took out the pose for Tracer,
which was in
uh,
beta.
plenty of other things. I mean, even the way that they add the balancing to Overwatch, is if we go past politics, the way that they balanced the game started to feel tilted for people, and then they're changing the amount of players, and then they're
Yep.
saying, oh, we're going to make a second game and it's going to have a single player campaign, and then they walk back on that, and so now there's no reason to upgrade, and it's like, oh, the loot box system is completely different now and how you get your outfits. So why would anyone trust them at this point to make a game, and why would you invest your time in that game knowing that they'll change it at the drop of a hat? Now, I'm not saying that Marvel Rivals is going to be immune to this. My concern with Marvel Rivals is actually that the frequency they're planning to add characters, because the game feels pretty good right now
Yeah.
and it's well enough balanced. The more you layer on characters, the more likely there is for something to crack. And it's not going to be good if that happens. So
What
I'm
she's
not
referencing
saying
is
that,
a
like,
character release every month and a half is currently their plan.
yes, every 6 weeks. And look, I think Marvel Rivals definitely exceeded expectations. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, dude, like, hero shooters are fucking dead. Everyone has superhero fatigue. And I was wrong. And I'm happy to say that I was wrong about that game, because I looked at it and I was like, there's no fucking way this game's going to succeed. This looks pretty shitty. The first trailer they showed, like, the gameplay, it all looked really sloppy to me, right? And it was clear that it was stitched with AI. Now, I think they are still using AI assets for this game, but they clearly have put in a lot of work to make it look better, feel better, and they've learned a lot of lessons from what Blizzard did wrong, as James said, and they made that game good. And even if it's not my cup of tea, if I don't feel like playing Marvel Rivals every day, I see why so many people are into it. It's reignited the love for Marvel heroes in general for so many people. People are going back, watching shows, watching movies. I think you're going to see an increase of people going back to comic books and stuff as well because of this, and
Mhm.
people just trying to learn about the characters. So overall, like, huge, massive positive for gaming, for pop culture as a whole. And yeah, I at the same time, the company is not immune to it either. This is why live service games are so fucking dangerous. You invest all your fucking time in it, and you just don't know when something is going to change. We've seen all these game studios where, like, oh, I used to, I loved this GTA, or I loved, this Mass Effect or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're in the next one, or Witcher, right? Witcher 3 was great, and then it's like, oh, the next one looks like it could be dog shit because it's a completely different team. So
Mhm.
on a game like this too, all of a sudden someone new comes in that has enough powers to make a decision, they can fuck something up too. So it's just, I prefer the experience where you buy a game, it's single player, you know what you're getting from it. Don't fucking patch the game. Give me a good game day one. If you have to do your day one patch, whatever, I get a lot of people are taking advantage of that now. But just give me a game I can beat in like 8 to 12 hours, nice, tight, good experience, and I will be happy. I don't like this trend of extending games out to the point where it's like, with live service, I don't know if you're going to fuck with what I've already done and what I like here.
Yeah.
We've seen it with, even with Final Fantasy 14. I don't know much about it because I don't play it, but people love that game, and it's slowly declined, and now people have so many issues with that game.
And it's
And
declined because of the writing.
I looked at that game, and I was, at one point I was like, wow, this is taking over World of Warcraft. Like, I can see people playing this over what World of Warcraft has done, and now they're saying the writing is shit in Final Fantasy 14 as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing that scares me about this trend, is that, like, they could fuck it up at any point. That's the biggest thing for me. But also, like, all of these companies are just going to fall into like safe slots, and they're not going to experiment. They're not going to make crazy stories anymore, because with those kind of like live service games, you can't really have a story that defines itself at any point. You need it to keep going. So you can't really make anything interesting happen.
Yeah.
It's just, altogether, I'm seeing a melting pot of trends in gaming right now. I'm seeing the death of hack and slash because of Souls games. I'm seeing a big increase in games like Breath of the Wild, where it's
Mhm.
just aimless and big, and you spend tons of time and you don't do all the side missions because there's just an overwhelming amount. And you do these things, like even with Rebirth, where I feel like I played it and I really wanted to love Rebirth, and I'm doing all these little quirky side missions that I just don't fucking care about. So all of these games are just made now to keep you engaged with them as long as possible, to stretch them out as long as possible. And it's not about making a good experience anymore. It's about funding an industry.
Yep.
These people are all panicking. They're all trying to figure out how to make money so that they can keep making jobs for making video games. That's really what they're doing.
They're
not thinking about how to make good games anymore.
So if I can, I'll offer advice to the AAA developer, and this is just my opinion, that is making a live service game, and the AAA developer that decides the live service market is too oversaturated. What do I do? If you're making a live service game, here's what you got to do. Because I totally understand a company, especially in this time, wanting to keep people employed, keeping them on a salary, and keeping them on one consistent game and not having to lay off people. I would love that. And I can love live service games. Love TF2. I used to love Overwatch. I now love Marvel Rivals. To make a successful live service game, this is something where you need to hook people for an infinite amount of time and hook their wallets on like a monthly basis. To do that, the number one thing that the West has to do is let fucking go their politics and their identity culture war, and they need to make attractive characters. You need to realize that the people screaming that things are sexualized online will not spend money or play your game anyway. Concord is proof of that. Suicide Squad is proof of that. If you're going to make a live service game, the overwhelming amount of people that you want to market is the people that say, I am going to play your game in my free time. I work a full-time job. I come home. I have maybe 40 minutes to an hour and a half in between my fucking life to dedicate to doing my dailies and having fun in my game and escaping. They don't want to look at an ugly fucking character that is disgusting. You need to give them aesthetically pleasing characters, both male and female. And only those two, because nothing else exists. Male and female, and that's it. And they have to be good to look at, pretty to look at. Forget what you fucking learned in college. Forget all that shit. You need to have people wanting to spend money. And they're not going to spend money on something that looks ugly. Do you think a restaurant is going to say, try it, it tastes so good, but the food looks like absolute fucking diarrhea garbage? Are they going to make more money, or are they going to go over to the place that's making appetizing looking food? Everyone's going to go to the place where it looks good and then eat the food and give the money there. You need to apply that mentality to these games. You also need to let go of your greed, and you need to adopt no FOMO tactics and just let the money flow. Pippa came in for 5. Thank you so much, Pippa.
Thank you, Pippa.
Payment processors are a huge problem we still don't have solutions to. I have a story about that in the rapid fire news, and I agree, Pippa. That's a global issue for sure, and it can be a bitch, absolutely. I would even say, though, for a lot of these AAA companies, because we are talking AAA, they will have the resources to find solutions. If you're talking about it in this regard, they will have solutions in place with their team to overcome that. And if they're running into problems with payment processors, that pretty much means that they're a success, and that's almost like a good problem to have. It's like, oh, that's our challenge, that we're not letting the money come in? Good. Okay, that's actually a good problem that we need to solve now. So I agree, though. I absolutely agree. I think what it really hurts is the little guy. It hurts the underdogs, the indie people, when that gets fucked over. And in a rapid-fire news, Pippa, that's what we're going to be talking about, is the little guy getting fucked over by payment processors, primarily in Japan. Kay talked about it today on Side Scrollers as well. Thank you so much, Pippa. I 100% agree. On top of being aesthetically pleasing, you need to have an addictive, fun gameplay loop. If it ain't fun, why bother? And it helps to be based on an existing property so that there is something that can market to people. Marvel Rivals did all of these. You know Marvel. Let's take Marvel characters and make them sexually appealing to look at. And then we're going to take out FOMO, and so you feel more confident spending money with us. Also, the gameplay is fun because we are just taking what Blizzard eliminated. If you do all of those, it's still an uphill battle. Thank you so much. I'm refreshing because it didn't work for me. Louis Vitalve. Louis Vitalve for subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you do all of those, you will still have an uphill battle because you're effectively gambling. But if you don't do all of those, you're already out of the race. Doing all of those just enter you in the race. If you don't do all of those, you will never have a fucking chance of being successful. Now, if that's daunting, here's how to be successful in AAA. And AAA has forgotten this since the tail end of the 360 PS3 generation. What you have to do is, as Kay alluded to, you need to take chances. They don't have to be huge chances. You still have to apply aesthetically pleasing, and you still have to apply leaving your politics at the fucking door. So how are you going to attract people to your game? In everything up until the Xbox PS2 era and 360, it started to dwindle away, but it was really only gone at the tail end here. The game's hook was what sets it apart from other games. What is the game mechanic? What is the game design that will make you go to their game? It's not just another shooter. It's not just another platformer. There has to be a hook. Look at the Prince of Persia trilogy on the Xbox PS2. Oh yeah, we're a 3D platformer action-adventure game. What's our hook? You can fucking rewind time at any point. That's the coolest shit ever. No game was doing that at that point. Fear, it's just a horror shooter. Oh, but you can enter like slow-mo and it's super fucking satisfying and the AI is like super tight and fun and addictive. Halo was just a super polished, amazingly well done shooter on console, and so that was the first thing. You can literally look at genres of the industry and see they are doing good on this platform and think, what if I took this genre that is successful over here, and how could I successfully implement it over here instead? What would be the gameplay changes, and how can I make that fun here? Not pulling a StarCraft on the N64, but if you took that mentality and was like, how could we overcome those hurdles that Blizzard ran into a wall with there, and then actually make it a fun experience? You would have to radically change the gameplay. Think about like Halo Wars. Halo Wars was a simple RTS on the 360, moderately successful, but it played great, and in my opinion, it's probably the best RTS ever on console, because they're like, we figured out how to do shooters on console with Halo. Let's use Halo to figure out RTS games on console. So you got to think like that. You have to be creative, and you have to be willing to risk some money and still make it aesthetically pleasing. So you need to think about a gameplay hook that no one else is doing at the time, because for games, it should all be about gameplay, because if it ain't fun, why bother? So anyway, there you go. I'm talking to nobody, but that's my advice. Fuck you, Western industry. You're probably not going to take it, and then you're going to fail, and I'm going to be stuck playing Chinese games till I die. I went on autistic. What was I talking about there for like 20 minutes? I went on a rant. Thank you.
That was a great rant.
Thank you, Pippa, for the super chat there. Stream Elements is so fucked, but I agree. Payment processors are a bitch. I'll get more into that on the rapid fire.
No, very well said, and I completely agree. And I think another thing these companies really need to do is learn how to pivot quickly. If they see something going in a poor direction, they need to handle that properly.
Yeah.
I really don't like what Daniel Vavra did with Kingdom Hearts. Or sorry, not Kingdom Hearts. I'm thinking about Kingdom Hearts now.
He turned it into Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Come Deliverance. Jesus. And I don't like his response with that and how he let it roll and did it just trust me, bro. And he didn't read the room quick enough. And then by the time he did read the room, everyone was pissed off because it was like you could have just handled this and nipped it in the bud quickly. And instead you just let things roll and get out of control. And people speculated and dug into it and didn't like this or that. And you weren't like fully being upfront. So, you know, it's same with like Blizzard and their ego and saying that they're still going to do all this DEI shit. Who are they appealing to at this point except for themselves, really? They might think that they're appealing to people, you know, outside in the audience and get this whole complex that like, oh, we're the minority and we're scared right now and we're going to go for the real human beings and not those crazy racists or whatever they want to fucking call it, which is all retarded shit. But realistically, like, you have to appeal to the gamers at the end of the day. And there's a
Yeah.
loud minority out there that's yelling for trash that a majority of us don't fucking want.
Mm-hmm.
We don't fucking want this shit in our games. And the people that are constantly crying about this shit, they're not playing your games. And they don't care if you are fucking apologizing and all this shit. Because you see all these people apologize for offending things or whatever. They don't fucking care. The people that are upset that you're doing something like that you're offending them, they just want to celebrate and revel in the fact that you're failing. They don't want to see you succeed. But if you're appealing to the gamers and what people actually want, you'll see the money come in. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of these companies don't realize it. And that's why they're clinging to these ideas. They're going to cling to their TDS and whatever else because they think, oh, there's surely people out there that are just afraid right now. And they just over dramatize everything that's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
if companies stick to these programs in spite of executive orders and everything, they're just going to bite themselves in the ass. I mean, the country voted for a reason in the direction they did, and read the room and understand what people actually want and what they're sick of. It's it's just baffling to me that people will just plant their fucking flag in the ground and not realize how wrong they are and how much they're overestimating this audience that doesn't exist for them.
I know. It's crazy. I said years ago, years and years and years ago, these people, I said this with comic books, because to me, it was the first industry they took over was comic books. In like 2010, 2011, they really showed it. They will die on their sword. They will burn the entire industry down, even though they're wrong. And that is what you're seeing right now with the games industry. So, to the people that are in charge that still like money, you need to get rid of the, ideologues. You need to get rid of those people that are pushing things in your company, no matter how entrenched they are, no matter how high up they are, that are just against making money and they just want to push politics. It's never been more clear who these people are that are literally burning your company to the ground. And once you get rid of them, you should announce that you got rid of them. You should say, hey, I know that our last game was this, this, and this, and it was really fatiguing and exhausting. That's not what we stand for. So we got rid of that. Our next game is getting back to badass fun. It's going to kick ass. It's not going to have any of this bullshit. Video games are about fun. Sorry that we fucked up employing these people. They're gone. Let's get back to making good games. You should do that. You should absolutely fucking do that. Otherwise, you're going to be the last person at your company and you're not going to make profit after that. You're probably going to be rich because you're the top guy, but, you know, you're not going to have any castle to rule over.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I don't know if we put it in our. I know we put a lot of news in our things in general in our rapid fire. I don't know if James, you and I talked about this, but there was some stuff floating around. People saying that like minorities and women are predominantly affected by the layoffs in the gaming industry. I'm
No,
not
I
sure if you
didn't see
saw
that.
that.
I didn't see
I
that.
saw random tweets about it. It's like for me, it was kind of like just fucking funny, and I didn't think it was really like newsworthy necessarily. But it relates to what we're saying because it's just funny to me that they're like crying about all that shit and being like, now we're going to be the victim and cry about how women are the ones predominantly affected. Yeah, maybe you're cleaning house because that failed. Instead of hiring over merit, you cared about these things like
Yeah.
hiring fucking minorities and women and representation shit instead of looking at the merit of the people building the games. And you have all these people infesting the industry that, for lack of better words, I'm just going to be blunt about it, they sit here and they blame white men all day for the video game industry failing, and they blame them for not letting them in, and they blame them for all sorts of things. You wouldn't have video games without white men at the helm. I stand firmly by that. The gaming industry for so long was financed by white male geeks, and then other people started to flood in. Now, I'm not saying that there were no minorities or women or anything. Obviously, I've been a gamer for a long time. There are people like us out there. But to sit there and insult white men constantly and act like they're the problem is just insane to me. You're just sitting there and constantly complaining about them, turning them into this like evil thing that you're fighting. And it's just fucking retarded because this industry would not exist without them. And I'm not diminishing what Japan has done. Japan has done so much for gaming. But again, that was also a bunch of Asian men, which are now also written off and pretty much treated like white men at this point in some universities and some corners of the internet. But these are the people that created the pillars of what you have today. And they let you into their fucking industry and they brought you in, and what you do is shit on them and tell them that they're evil, and you push them out. You push all these like industry veterans out to have these fucking diversity hires that don't know how to do basic code, that don't understand the philosophy of gaming, that just fucking sit there and just whine all day and ask for higher representation. Let's make stories about trannies and black people, and let's race swap every character and this and that because we need to be represented more in games. Instead of just creating original IPs, they sit there and they subvert all the fucking media that we have because they want to feel like they're included. And then they're shocked when there's no money anymore because you've lost our trust as fucking players of these games. You've lost our trust. Every time I see a game, I'm like, are you going to fucking subvert and put this shit in it? I don't fucking know because that's the history of it. So don't be surprised that women and minorities and whatever else are more affected by these layoffs. First of all, it's just another victim fucking complex because you're just trying to make it about you again. Why don't you look at the root of the problem that you're hiring over fucking quotas instead of merit? And I want to see the industry heal, and I want to see us just bringing in people that actually understand how to build games, understand why people love games. And I'm tired of this fucking thing of like, we need to include everyone. People that want to play games or be in games and working on them should be the ones there, and they should be there because they actually care about the art form and about creating something special. And they care about sharing that with people and the people playing it, of course. I don't care who fucking plays games, but I'm just saying, like, you're making them for the people that actually want to play them. You're not making these games for people that want to see themselves be seen, because those are the people that just destroy everything. They just want to see themselves seen in everything. It's a selfish thing. It's very narcissistic. And those people, they don't want to spend money on you, really, if you're not doing even this. If you do the slightest thing wrong to them, they don't want to spend money on you anyway. So it's fucking pointless.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just interesting that the AAA industry, you have companies like Blizzard that still want to like double down on this, and it's like, okay, good luck, bro, because you need to fucking accept that this is a thing of the past, and it's long overdue that these things are being corrected. Like, people have been angry at this shit for like over 10 years.
Yeah, and if they don't correct it, then financially it's going to correct itself. And, you can only operate on a loss at that level for so long. I absolutely predict that after Mass Effect, if they don't completely course correct, BioWare is done. I don't know how long Blizzard has got. I mean, they're joint with Activision Blizzard, but I don't know how long Blizzard properties have really going on. And new Doom is not for me, but that is something that is right in the Western game industry. It's just like, they're not doing politics, they're not doing bullshit. In fact, Doom Eternal actually mocks the people that we're talking about, if you pay attention to the story and the lore. And so even though I don't like Doom Eternal, it's just like, oh shit, that's actually pretty funny. And they're openly mocking those people. And so there's a game that is successful. That's like a lot of people's most anticipated game of the year. If GTA was not coming out this year, I think Doom: The Dark Ages might be the most anticipated game coming out this year. So, yeah, it's so obvious and never been more obvious. Okay, I can't follow up what you said because you said it perfectly. And it's going to be a harsh lesson learned for the Western industry if they don't start course correcting by eliminating the ideology and actually taking chances and making good games again. It's just that simple. You got to cut out the fat. Absolutely.
Yep, I completely agree. I'm going to read some chat and then we'll move on to our next story here.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to pick a random point. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out, for chatting, for supporting everything and listening to us rant about the things that are on our mind. I mean, you're spending your Thursday night with us. Some of it's like fucking 3 a.m. probably, and you just sit here and listen to us. So thank you so much. It really means a lot.
Thank you.
Probably losing sleep just listening to us rant about retarded shit like how Kingdom Hearts sucks. D-Day says, make KH fan fiction that actually makes sense, and Mission Impossible, bro. I don't even think that can happen. Gunrum says all 3 of those remakes were ass. JD says Funny that the decent free speech platform is Russian based.
Really
I
makes you think.
mean, even then, I think Pavlov might be a little.
Yeah, Telegram ain't
Yeah.
perfect. There's no
Yeah.
free speech platform. Telegram is
I
just
think
one
he
of the
might
better
be
ones.
compromised now, unfortunately. I don't know for sure, but there's just been some weird shit since he got let free. So we'll see. I really like the guy,
Telegram
but
absolutely glows.
yeah. JB says, meanwhile, in the free world, EU tells Romania they voted wrong. And in regards to the other story, JB saying YouTube can remove individual videos that are in violation or contested. They shouldn't use a nuke when an email would work. And that's the main thing that bothers me about that story is that you can have a problem with somebody hijacking your IP and making something that you might be yourself fulfilling already or you have plans for in the future and you want to protect your product. I understand that. But to completely destroy what a YouTube has built because you don't like what they're doing or because they're in violation of that is just ridiculous. Like, I think there's way better ways to handle it. And YouTube shouldn't give people that power at the end of the day. That's the thing that really drives me crazy is that YouTube should not give you that fucking power to say, oh, you're using my copyright. Okay, you're fucking gone.
Mm-hmm.
Get them to, at most, get them to remove the content that is in violation, in my opinion. Dax is heading out. Have a good night, Dax.
Have
And
a
also,
good
dude
night.
headed out as well. Have a good night, dude. Nightmare says, I truly hate live service slop, and it only takes 1 out of 100 successes to make the industry try 100 more. And that's the thing, right? The industry sees a trend, sometimes in delay. Whether or not regardless of my feelings with Marvel Rivals, I still felt like their initial thing from the get go was really following a trend that was already dying. And I still stand by that. They just found a way to rejuvenate it, and it's great. And that's it's rare. I don't think it happens often in the industry where a company can follow up a game that is successful and
It's
eventually,
rare. Rare's making good games again.
I wish
Oh,
fucking Sea of Thieves, man. But yeah, it's just it's something that doesn't happen often, right? And a lot of these companies, they just follow the trend until it's dug into the ground. Now, Marvel Rivals was able to take advantage of the fact that Blizzard is fucking retarded, as we've seen. They're still retarded, even a few days ago. JB says $30 in 1980 is $114 today. $30 in 1989 is around $76 today. Games for home computers cost around $30 in the 80s. In my opinion, anything past $80 should mean a large and exceptional game with many, many hours of play. $20 in 1980 is also $76 today. This is also a reasonable 1980 price for a tape or a floppy disk game. Now, I do have one thought on this, and I agree what you're saying in principle, JB, that like games, if they're over a certain price, should bring a certain value to people. My concern, and I think James shares this with me as well, I don't want to fully speak for you, but you and I have both had the discussion online and offline that games and value of money and everything means something different to everyone.
yeah.
Time versus money, everything. So for some people, they might feel like Space Marine, and I'm going Canadian prices, you guys know by now. $80 for Space Marine might feel extremely valuable for someone, even though it's a shorter game because they got a really good experience in that short amount of time with it and it was worth the $80. But you might have somebody who wants to get more gameplay out of their game who might want like a Rebirth size game for that price, same price.
Yeah.
And they might want to spend more time with that game and not move on to something. So cost is so subjective to people because some people will buy like one game in a year, some people will buy 50, some people will wait for sales. So I agree on the level that it needs to be a really good quality product that you're charging a high price for. But in terms of the length of the game, I think it's subjective. I think you should just write your stories into the amount of time that makes sense and your gameplay loop in the amount that makes sense. And you shouldn't worry about extending your game because that's ultimately where we run into this problem where games are decreasing in quality.
Yeah, I always really liked how Total Biscuit worded it and handled it because it's complicated, but he did such a fantastic job navigating that question that confusion because yeah, it was anytime he'd review a game for his What the Fuck Is series, he would he would talk about the financial aspect of it, and it's just like he would not take that into account. as a lot of other people do. It's like, this game is too expensive, this game is too cheap, it's a steal, da 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 da. Because, yeah, a dollar value means something different to everybody. If you're rich, it's like a drop in the bucket. If you're poor, you might be only able to afford like one new game a year, and you might be banking on this being your game. So you just really have to eliminate that value talk when you're reviewing an individual product. Now, it applies to the GTA conversation because this is an industry-wide thing that some developers and some gaming journalists are thinking are going to fix the industry magically. Effectively, this is an argument like inflation, where it's just like, oh, just increase the costs and then everything will magically get fixed. So if GTA, because GTA will make $1 billion if they sell it $1,000 a copy. So GTA is such a industry pusher. It's arguably the biggest in terms of non-sports titles, that if they say their game is $100, some asking for $150, and this is in American dollars, that means that every AAA game going forward can set the standard price at $100. Which I think that is a really, really tough sell, especially in this economy. And I know in America, people are feeling more optimistic with Trump and everything. But that would mean that games in Canada cost, what, $130? Like, roughly, which is just...
Yeah, right now what we're sitting at is $89.99 for a brand new game plus taxes. You're looking at about roughly $110 after taxes, between $100 and $110. So them bumping it up
to
for
100.
Americans, I think it would be at least like $130, $140 a
That's
game in
insane.
Canada.
That's insane. Absolutely.
And I
insane.
mean, obviously, this is directly tied to it, so I will get slightly political. We're dealing with tariffs and stuff potentially in the next few days as well.
So that
in
will
other
also
countries.
impact it?
I'm not necessarily against that for America, but obviously for countries that are impacted, which we would be impacted by that, it obviously sucks for us. And we might even see that be even higher than what America is dealing with their game prices. The way it translates, depending on where these games ship in from, etc.
Mm-hmm.
That could increase the price for us too. I have no idea what all of that entails, but the point is that cost of living is going up for everyone, and so to then increase the cost of a game that's entertainment. Now, I still think video games have better entertainment value in terms of how much you can stretch out the time compared to, like, say, a movie or something. Like, you get a lot more time out of them on average.
Well, for example,
but still, it's
for Valentine's Day, I'm taking you to Captain 3. 2 tickets cost $60, which is crazy.
Yeah, so
crazy.
We pay an extra like $40, we get a video game.
Exactly.
That's at least longer than the length of that movie.
That movie's under 2 hours.
It's still the best value for entertainment for people, beyond like maybe a Netflix subscription for those who fucking care about Netflix, not me.
Yeah.
But it's going to be harder and harder for people to buy into that when they're worrying about their bottom line in other directions. And I think increasing it now, while it might make sense to the industry and them funding, their employees and whatever else, on the end here, it's not going to make sense for the consumer. I think at the end of the day, the consumer is just going to turn to indie and go, okay, well, I can get this great experience for $20, and you don't like fucking, lob all this bullshit at me, and I don't have to worry about it, and I just go on Steam, quick, buy it, done. And that's it.
This ties into the greed that all these developers are looking at with live service games. They think they see $100 price tag and they're like, we're rich. And it's like, no. Now you have to prove yourself even more. Now you have an even higher bar instead of being cheaper, because now people are even more apprehensive to open their wallets. Why open it to you if you're $100 when the industry and people like us are constantly pointing out that you get a way better dollar value if you play these obscure, unknown indie games that are $10, $20, right? Marvel Rivals is free.
Yeah.
And a lot of the skins are more aesthetically pleasing than the skins you buy. So there's a $0 incentive, infinite fun, or I'm going to spend $100 American, not including tax, on your shitty game riddled with propaganda, with recycled garbage mechanics, and it's uninspired slop, and it probably uses AI in it. Good luck. Good fucking luck. But yeah, in terms of reviewing a game on an individual case by case level, I agree with Total Biscuit eliminating money out of that conversation, because that really shouldn't influence a review. The game should be able to stand on its own two legs regardless of its cost. So, for example, if GTA ends up being $100, that would become a news piece for us. But if I was to say review it, which we don't officially review things, I would not factor in that price. I would talk about the game, solely about the
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
If
For
that
me, it'd
makes
be about
sense.
the actual gameplay, story, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I agree. Nightmare says the only reason normies aren't gargling more live service balls is because 90% of them are incompletely made. Yeah, incompetently made, sorry. Yeah, exactly. And that's really, I guess, what we're touching on right now, right? Is that a big part of it is like these games are incompetently made on a AAA level. So why would you turn to that? Especially, obviously, with live service, you're not paying like upfront necessarily or anything, but like, um, with $100 game, why would you pay for that when you know that you can find a better experience for cheaper as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
it makes no sense.
Good Room says, seen a guy remaking Castlevania Symphony of the Night in the Unity engine a few months ago. I don't know if he quit, but it looked pretty
Oh
cool.
shit.
And he says, well, back in the day, they were getting pushback for D2, and it all went to shit when they bought out. I guess him and JB were having a bit of a conversation about D2. And he says, I'm talking about back in the 2000s, a lot of people in the industry wanted to have them censor a lot of shit in the game itself. It never did get censored, and was watching an interview on it. Oh, it's interesting.
Mm.
Let's see here. D-Day says, let Edge in general reign free. Let the 2000s happen all over again. I completely agree. And, I think the people pushing back on the sexy in games, I think it's going to create some of the best art as well, in my opinion. And I'm kind of hoping for an early 2000s resurgence. I don't agree with these people that are getting mad at sexy characters being in games. I don't agree with any of these arguments. But I think this is kind of what happened in the early 2000s. Is even before that, you saw people pushing back, games are bad, this and that, and then like you saw the art transform and get even more rebellious. And I think the more that people are critical of video games, the more you're going to see rebellion out of them eventually too, but it's going to take time, and it's really about whether or not the industry is willing to take a risk with it.
Yeah.
And that I fear that they're not willing to take the risk because they're worried about money right now. So when they stop worrying about the money and they start worrying about the art again, I do see a rebellion in the future where we start to see games lash out, and we see returns like Ninja Gaiden remaster, where it's like, oh, look at this, and everyone's excited, and it's like, yeah, we saw these outfits like 10 fucking years ago with these games, and I fucking love it. But it's nice to see that this is back in topic of conversation again, and people are excited about it. So
There is constant signs to the higher ups, to the people that are making and breaking these deals in the industry, that now is the time to trust the game developers on creativity again. I mean, just look at Astrobot being Game of the Year last year. Look at how much it sold, and look how much it did for Sony. Sony completely abandoned 3D platformers and fun, charming games like for the past 2 generations. You could even argue on the PS3 as well. And now all of a sudden, it's like, here is this big love letter to those games. And the people went on stage for the Game Awards and flat out admitted, yeah, we weren't inspired by Sony shit. There's nothing to be inspired by. We were inspired by
Yep.
Nintendo. They straight up said that we were inspired by the other guys. And we just took
Yep.
what the other guys did and brought it with a Sony paintbrush. And huge sales, guaranteed sequel, Game of the Year, selling like hotcakes. That is a huge sign, and there's constant signs that the people that are making these deals should be like, okay, now is the time to return to this sort of game development. This is what we should be doing. So, but they're slow and old and outdated and retarded. So we'll see if they actually know how to make money. It's amazing how stupid the people who have the most money are. It will never cease to amaze me how dumb the most powerful and rich people are in the world. It's absolutely incredible. It makes you go, how did you get that rich and powerful if you're so stupid? If you're so out of touch?
Fucking no, man.
Is it just Alzheimer's? You used to be smart? So yeah, we'll see. We'll fucking see.
Dude said to your last point about Astrobot, he said this earlier. That's why Astrobot felt so fresh outside of Nintendo. Besides Nintendo, who else is making AAA or AA 3D platformers?
Well, Sony
Exactly.
is now, and Xbox never will because they're retarded. Xbox just wants to. Well, more on that if we get to that. But yes,
Absolutely. Adam says, "Yo, books. You get some time out of those, but I'm biased."
that's true.
I think, yeah, books are also a good form of entertainment, but realistically, nowadays, it's kind of a dying art form to people, right? Much like magazines. Like, I think people really just look for the thing that they can sit out and veg out to on the couch. And maybe some people find enjoyment in that, but most people like to just stare at a screen in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you that books have value as well. It's just, it's a lot more niche now than it used to be. People don't really turn to books as much.
But if I was working in the game industry and I wanted to pitch how to make money, Adam, there's a great idea. Why don't we adapt some famous books that have never been able to get into film? Why don't we make some video games based on some famous books and everything? You could do a Treasure Island video game. You could do a Moby Dick video game and hunt a big fucking whale. You could do a billion Edgar Allan Poe games that would be so gothic and fucked up and cool. You could literally do an anthology Edgar Allan Poe video game and have different chapters all based on his different novels. That would be fucking great. So there you go. It's just like this industry is just, it's so stupid and it's so easy to be creative in it, and then it's just, it keeps falling because everyone wants to die on their sword.
Exactly. Adam said James said he was confused about why rich people are making dumb decisions that lose them money. But it's not really about money for them. They want to fuck Alucard in the ass.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's true.
I can't
It's
wait for
true.
the Devil May Cry
No, I'm so
Netflix
pissed about this
series.
fucking shit. I can't even, man. Oh my god. Fallen Angel says, James, you're talking to people that think that Metal Gear games, because they have some politics in it, it means that it is a political game. They don't understand what politics is to them. Metal Gear Solid 2 is peak politics. Well, I think a lot of people misconstrue in game politics that make sense to their lore versus like outward, real world politics. I'm totally fine with video games having their own politics. I mean, I'm a big prequel fan, for example, Star Wars, and so much of like the prequels and so much of Clone Wars is really about the politics of everything going on leading up to the events. And I love that stuff. It's all within their universe. The problem people have is when games are political from like outside because we're looking at this as like escapism of sorts. We want to get immersed in the story. We don't want to think about the plain Jane down the street when we're playing the video game. We want to see bombastic women. We want to see fun, wacky, crazy things happening. We don't want like real world problems. We don't want to be reminded of all the fucking retarded people and all their opinions out there that we disagree with or that are just annoying or completely out of touch. We want to be able to be immersed in that lore. The characters all make sense for their actions within that lore. The lore is original and it's all a tight bow. And
Yeah.
that's what people don't get.
People like this cannot tell the difference between BioShock or Deus Ex or Metal Gear and them making a game like Concord or Dustborn, where it's just
Exactly.
like, yo, shit, we're the new people. We're going to kill you, dog. We hate you. It's like down, like, instead of actually making you think and seeing a different perspective and being like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of things that way. And, oh, this is, challenging. It's interesting. Instead, it's just like, these people want me dead and they want my
Yep.
kids raped and they think it's funny. It's a
Yep.
very, very clear fucking difference. And they think it's the same. They actually don't. They're lying to you because they're evil and they just want to be right and they want you dead. So that
Exactly.
it's just a false argument that they're fucking telling you. It's
Yeah.
absolutely fucking fake. They're literally just making hate porn and misery porn and fantasizing about you dying.
I consider it all a disingenuous argument, right? Like when we're talking about politics, we're obviously talking about outward politics that people are trying to beat down on us every day. We're not talking about the universe in the game and their politics. Games are allowed to be political within their own universe. So yeah, I you're always gonna find stupid people like that because they just want to so deeply and furiously defend the fact that they're okay with this shit. That's really all it is. And so they'll find anything to poke apart your argument, but we just have to stand firm in it. We all understand what we actually want out of these games. Fallen Angel says this is about the payment processor conversation. Thank you, and Chartard, for super chatting in. Said payment processors are a huge problem we still don't have solutions to. And yeah, we might not dive completely into payment processors on the Melee Madness today, but I did talk about it on Side Scrollers this morning as well. So if you're curious on my thoughts on some of that, you can find more on that there. There's a few different things going on with payment processors right now between Steam, between Nintendo, etc. Some which we might hit in the rapid fire.
That's such a
Fallen
funny
Angels,
joke for the rapid fire. That's how I'll talk about it.
I love it. Fallen Angel says the owner of Kiwi Farms talks about the payment processors a lot, so much so, in fact, that he started an organization to save the internet from censorship
Nice.
and the payment processors. Good, we need more of that.
Absolutely.
Goonrim says it started with Corn Games, as in porn, and then went to manga, and now Nintendo shit's weird now too. Yeah, it's all Japan processors and their retarded shit, which, like I said, we might get into more today, and if not, you can go watch me earlier talking about it. But yeah, it's fucking retarded, and there's like this complete just payment processors have too much power is really the TLDR of my opinion. They shouldn't have this much fucking power. They really fucking shouldn't. So,
No.
you know, here's hoping that we get more alternatives to it.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so funny because we have a solution. We just blow up the banks. Sorry, I was joking. In GTA Online, of course. That will solve the payment processors. You just blow those up. That's all you got to do. And then everything goes fine. Blow up those banks, and then you're fine.
God.
Not real ones. That would be like really bad. You don't want to do that. That would solve no problems.
I feel like later when I clip this part of the show, YouTube's going to be like, what kind of language did you use? And then they're going to get mad at me for exactly what you just said and be like, no. Which, by the way, I kind of side comment, but like the Star Wars one, for some reason, got limited ad suitability, and I don't know why.
Star Wars one? What Star Wars one?
When you played Star Wars Outlaws. I don't know why.
I mean, I learned from my family member that stumbled across my streams that I swear every other word.
I know, but I said that there was swearing in it, so I'm like, what the fuck did we say that was like above that? Because they were totally fine and said it was safe for ads, and then suddenly it wasn't.
I called Zabrax ugly now. I hurt the feeling. I heard the feelings of Zabrax.
That could be it. JB says End of the Matrix 2093 had slow-mo before Fear, as did Max Payne 2001.
Yeah, I mean, you're never this is we were going to talk about this story, but it was so stupid. And I just cut it out. But on that note, it's like people are acting like there's an own to Assassin's Creed Shadows because Steven Totillo pointed out that the cutting mechanics are like good in the game, and so people are like, oh haha, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance had good cutting mechanics. And it's like, yeah, guess what, I guess we can never fucking make a platformer anymore because Mario jumped back in 1989 or whatever. So it's like, it's not about inventing something. You don't, to be successful in the industry, yeah, it's great, it's so great if you can invent something new. That's incredibly hard, but it's more about seeing what's missing. And so it's just, I was using Fear as a success because I know it wasn't the first game to like do slow-mo by a long shot. I don't even think Max Payne was, and that was great as well. But it's just like it provided something that the average gamer thought they were missing. And perception is everything. Perception is fucking reality. So, yeah, those gamers could have just gone back and played Max Payne. And there's probably one gamer that at the announcement of Fear was playing Max Payne at the same time. And he's just like, this is derivative. But like for the average person at that point, they saw that and they're like, well, this is huge and this is new. And it took in really great AI. It's still, in my opinion, Fear has the best enemy AI of any game ever. So it married all these different mechanics that were kind of missing at that time, that it just struck at the perfect time as well. That's another thing, is you can't fall into the Duke Nukem Forever trap, even though I totally defend and love Duke Nukem Forever. They were afraid of, ultimately, Duke Nukem Forever, the reason it went on so long is they were afraid to pull the trigger and say, this is our game. And so they were making it so good and polishing it. And by the time they were ready to release it, the game was outdated. And they felt like, now we can't do it. And so we got to reinvent the wheel again. Da-da-da-da-da-da. There's like 3 or 4 different versions of Duke Nukem Forever, and they're all radically different because the developers were just afraid on fucking letting it go and trying to make that game a success as it stood each of those times. And again, you could say it's like, well, Duke Nukem Forever, that's just derivative of Doom. Duke Nukem's just derivative of Doom. But at the time when Duke Nukem 3D came out, I'm just going on autistic rants now. People loved Doom, and the whole thing was what's going to kill Doom. And so that's a way you could do game design as well, is if something is super hot, people are looking for that competition. They want the Andre the Giant to the Hulk Hogan, and Doom was Hulk Hogan. Who's going to take down Hulk Hogan? And so shooters were doing so good on PC in the 90s because it's just like, is this the Doom killer? Is this the Doom killer? And you could argue that Duke Nukem and Quake, I would say, and Unreal, those are the games that were huge successes because people were like, Doom is so good, what can take it down? And so you could even just do that. It's just like, it's pretty much just saying what could be a success. What is something that is missing right now that could be a fucking success? And so even that, just kind of being an antagonist for a game could be a success. So for Fear specifically, it wasn't just the slow-mo, but it's the slow-mo executed perfectly in a first-person shooter with a horror element, which was pretty hot at the time because this is right around Doom 3 and Prey. So people, it was like kind of the grungier, darker shooter time. And it's like, what is going to make us stand out from the rest of these games? And we're going to have like really good slow-mo, and we're going to have a really good story. And our villain is like Hannibal Lecter, but mixed with Professor Xavier. And it's just marrying all that. Just taking chances. You don't have to invent a totally new fucking mechanic. I hate the industry so much. Anyway. Does that make any sense?
It's like a love-hate relationship, isn't it? You love something so much.
Did anything I said make sense there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good.
But yeah, you love something so much that you have certain hatred for parts of it because of how much it's been twisted. I get that. That's how I
It's
feel
like a child that you just want to beat until it's corrected. I would strike that one. Clip, don't include that in the clip. You want to correct it with love. So that it's good.
It's so bad at me when I try to fucking make this segment that was like well said, and then we're like, let's fucking bomb the banks.
You can
in
cut
Minecraft.
You can cut in GTA
No,
Online.
I'm trolling. I don't fucking care. I'll
you can
obviously
cut those
make a clip
out.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll make a clip that makes sense. I'm not worried about it.
You can just put a duck over my mouth and go quack quack quack, and then you're fine.
It's fine. I'm just trolling. I think it's funny. I don't really care. I'll just make the clip obviously make sense regardless. So you might not even see this in that clip because we've been going over an hour on our tangent for this. So I probably cut it down just so people get the TLDR a little bit. Snapple says, I'm happy to pivot the Melee Games channel to a Kingdom Hearts direction. No! Looking forward to this arc. Oh, God. I can't. JV says, no, they rebrand it. Should be Class of 09. Well, you guys are getting Class of 09 next week, aren't you? I think so. Yeah. February 4th? Is that
February 4th. I can't wait. It's going to be the easiest and best stream ever. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my gosh.
Goonerm says, look at BioWare. They fired a lot lately and tried to hide it. And JB says, a lot of them got shuffled back to their parent company, EOA. Or is it just EA now? EA.
Yeah.
Jerry says, Kay, you started gaming when you started dating James. Apparently that's the lore James is creating for no fucking reason.
You really hate me for that one, don't you?
It's just retarded because I've been playing games for so long.
I don't know if I believe you anymore.
And now people are gonna I don't care if our audience trolls, but I guarantee you someone's gonna run with that one day when they're like fucking arguing me on Twitter.
Yeah, Kay's only been
you don't
playing
actually play games. You've only been playing it since you dated a man that likes video games.
That's
you
true.
never cared about it.
I forced the controller into her hand with hot glue, and I'm like, sit down, you little shit. You're gonna play some Sonic. And you're like, what's that? Like the food company? Go on.
I'm not even going to say what I'm thinking right now. Goodroom says, correct, white adjacent. JB says, yes, insult the people who invented a Western civilization. Bold move, Cotton. Exactly. Nightmare says John Romero needs to make us his bitch again. JB says
Daikatana.
JB says quit trying to piss off white people. We're better at war than you. JB's ready to fucking fight.
I love how this is a conversation when we're talking about live service games in the industry, and suddenly we're talking about blowing up banks, beating kids, and going to war with the white man.
I mean, that's just a regular Melee game.
Make
stream, right?
that a live service game. War with the white man, where you blow up banks and beat children. Live service game. There you go. Sold.
No, there's not a game quite like that yet, is there? I was
No.
like, there must be a game that you can do some of that in it.
All you gotta do to fucking be successful in this industry is look at random keywords put together and be like, game? Just tie it to a genre and you're like, oh, there's a game. Done. That will sell. It's different.
Nerdy Neo's here. How's it going, Nerdy Neo? Saying Doom is better than GTA. Well, I know you're a bit of a Rockstar hater, Neo. I don't think you're wrong on this one, though. I think Doom is overall better than GTA.
Yeah. As in overall comparing the two franchises, I mean, I call Doom 1 arguably the best game ever made. So there's that.
Yeah. I think he's right. I think Doom is better than GTA, but there's a lot of people that love GTA. And I think Rockstar makes good games between Red Dead, GTA, Bully. Like, there's tons. That's good.
I even think the new Doom will
Is it Midnight Club them as well or something?
Midnight Club
there was a racing game.
Rockstar, yeah.
Yeah. I fucking love that game.
Yeah.
I mean, Fallen Angel said...
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway, sorry, no, we've been on enough tangents. I was going to talk about Rockstar games. Go on. Just go. Let's go.
You can if you want. I don't know when you're starting a tangent or not, so I don't want to interrupt you.
I was just going to praise they're not GTA games. That's where I think they're best at, which is Red Dead and LA Noire. Go on.
Oh, yeah, LA Noire. I forgot to mention that. Fallen Angel says, here's a data point. Make of it what you will. Studies with little boys and girls playing with human-like toys. After a while, kids wanted to become the doll, meaning they wanted to be strong and imitate the doll, while the girls wanted the doll to become them. So they started inserting the doll into situations like if the doll was them.
Yes. Yes, yep. This is fundamentally a brain difference between men and women and how they perceive things. Yep. Adam
Misner says, is there a payment processor you recommend? To be completely honest with you, I don't think any of them are perfect right now. I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending any. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and shill crypto on our channel. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say there's certain things that are building off of things like that are probably the closest to being decentralized, but I'm not endorsing buying crypto.
Okay, when can the people buy the Melee coin?
No, it's not fucking happening.
Shit. Well, there goes my money.
But yeah, no payment processor is good right now, but you just want to look for the thing that's giving you the best free market. Let's see here. Goon Room says Mick Gordon got screwed. I wonder who's doing the soundtrack now.
Yeah, good. I always forget about that point when I'm talking about things I hate about Doom Eternal. Yeah, he got royally fucked by them over Doom Eternal to the point where they were, without his permission, like remixing his music and all this stuff, and it was a fucking shit show. Absolute fucking shit show. Absolutely. There's so many things I forget that I dislike about that game.
Elvis says the industry is such a dumpster fire. Still great games out there, but AAA is nuts.
Yeah.
JB says it should take a court order as part of a lawsuit or criminal case to delete a monetized YouTube channel. Individual videos are fair game. And he says, fair point. So call the last category length or replayability. I think replayability is a decent one. Yeah. Like fighting games are short to beat usually, but have a high replay value. Yeah, I agree. Terrence is here saying, salute, James K, Melee Crew in chat. Everyone hit that like button. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
And hope you're doing well. And he says, the price of living /video games /groceries are too high.
Yeah.
True.
So let's see what happens if they try to raise the price to $100 a game. Good luck.
Adam was a fan of some of our rants today and says to Clippo, thank you so much, Adam, for hanging out with us tonight and for saying that means a lot. Adam also says, Anakin, you will master the Force and create peace in the galaxy, but don't come.
Who do you want me to do the voice of for that? Is that Obi-Wan? Anakin, you will master the Force and create peace in the galaxy, but do not come. I will come, Master. All over Padme's beautiful Nabooian tits. Anakin, you can't. The council will not allow it. There you go. There's a little bit. I could do Anakin cum jokes all day.
That was perfect. Adam says, I think One Punch Man is proof that you don't need to invent something new. You can also execute well on a concept.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think the
point.
main problem is when people try to subvert that thing. I think it's okay to build. I mean, everything comes from stories that are old, right? But I think when you try to fucking
Everything.
subvert, well, yeah, isn't there that
Yes.
whole thing where the everything is one story and
Everything
this?
is inspired by something. It's almost impossible for the human brain to create something that is completely fresh and new and uninspired on any other fiction that came before it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 99% of things are adapted from something, but even if it's not and it's original, you can tie that producer, designer, director, whatever's work to inspiration. He melded these ideas with these. I mean, he can even take it from life experiences. It's really, really difficult for the human brain to just look at a blank piece of paper and create without carrying something that they love and putting it in it. That's the whole point, is taking what you love and creating something new out of it.
Let's see here. Neo says, Kay, we know you love your Netflix. That's where you get most of your inspiration for your fanfic.
See, and that's
This
her
is fake
inspiration.
news. I
She
fucking hate
she
Netflix,
loves The
bro.
Office and she creates wonderful fan fiction out of it.
Fucking hate it, man. Literally today, when we were talking about Netflix on side scrollers, I was like, I have nothing to say to this because I don't fucking care about Stranger Things or
Oh my
Squid
god, man.
Game or Little House on the Prairie being remade. I was honest with Blabs. I was like, hey, with the Netflix shit, that's all you, girl. I don't fucking care about Netflix. Like, I
That
don't care about modern slob at all. I just can't.
no, very no. The only modern slop I watch ironically because I hate it.
Yeah. We got Electric Porpoise here. How's it going? Saying,
So
hey, howdy. JB says you get a way better dollar value if you stay 2 years behind new releases. I agree with that. And he says, that's where I disagree. The price is a factor versus the amount of playtime, similar to how you said you can pay a bit more and get many more hours with a game versus a movie. So I think price is relevant. But again, it's subjective because
yeah, it
some
is.
people care about getting that time value out of their game. And some people have more money than time and more time than money. So you might get someone who is like, I only have, 5 hours a week to play a game, so they're going to buy a game that they can beat in a manageable time.
Yes.
And they don't care about the price for that because they make enough money to, pretty much justify that purchase. And then on the flip side, you might have somebody who has a lot of time, but they don't want to be shelling out $100 every 2 weeks. They want to just buy a game for like 3 month period.
Yeah.
And then they want to be like, okay, this has to stretch out 20 hours a week for the next whatever 3 months. So
It's
then they're
so
going to buy a
personal.
game that's way longer.
Yeah, it's so personal. Like I personally, I don't like games that go on forever. I get exhausted. I want to go on to the next game. I have an infinite backlog. So if a game is longer, I will avoid it. And so a game that is way longer for me would actually have to be cheaper personally for me to give it a shot. Because if a game is longer and therefore it's priced higher, I'm like, fuck you. No way. No fucking way. Whereas a game I can beat in one sitting is like the most satisfying experiences I've had with gaming.
Mm.
The Spy Who Shot Me, one and done. Loved it for that. I don't want to be doing streams of games part 10, part 12, part 13 if it's a single player game and it's just like, all right, here we go again. It's like I want you to be a succinct, well done experience. And that is just personal to me and my money. Whereas some people are complaining about Space Marine being too short for the dollar value. I actually appreciate it, but then I also can't really argue the price value for Space Marine because it was gifted to me. Thank you again, Insidious Bliss. So that doesn't factor in for me, which is why Total Biscuit also never factored in price value because he got keys. Or no, he refused keys. I think he refused keys. But
Yeah, he did refuse keys because he felt like it would influence his review because the
yeah,
studio was kind to him, essentially. So even if they would offer it to him, he then would feel like he can't review that game properly.
exactly. So it's just it's just different for everybody. Absolutely everybody. When I would play World of Warcraft, I would only play World of Warcraft because I'm paying monthly for World of Warcraft. And there was times where I would want to play World of Warcraft, but then I'm like, if I sub, I'm gonna have to play it for the whole month, and I don't want to do that. And that is just a personal decision on my money and where I was financially at the time of when I would want to play that. So it's just, yeah, I think it's very unique, and it's really about how you value your money and your time with that kind of thing.
And I think like if you're talking about we're talking about what medium you get more time out of. I think that's still a bit subjective. I think like you'll get more time out of video games over movies, but like it's still subjective which one you prefer. Like people will still prefer the movie experience and they're fine spending that value of money to just go and watch a movie for 2 hours and be done and not have to worry about it again.
Yeah.
So I think that part of it is subjective still and like where people find the value in what they'd rather do. But if you're looking at like how much time you're going to get out of video games versus movies, by the dollar, you're going to get more time out of a game than out of a movie on average. So that's kind of the difference to me is like it's the value of it's going to be different to everyone. For me, I prefer to invest the value in video games over movies. But there will be people out there who would much rather view the movie, even though the dollar amount to the amount of time may feel like there's a big variance in it in comparison.
And I always have to bring up Brothers as this argument. And I'm beating a dead horse with this, but Brothers is a game that you can beat in an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it's an amazing, almost 10 out of 10 experience. For some people, it's a 10 out of 10 experience because the whole point of Brothers is it's such a unique experience and it's such a wonderful story that's told without dialogue, so it's kind of universal as well, and it really speaks to men and also men that have siblings and brothers and stuff. But on a gameplay side, it's just so incredible because it's an hour and a half to 2 hour experience, and you're like, well, that isn't enough for me. But the whole point of that game is it never repeats a mechanic, and no other game does that. Like, think about that. Every single level is a new mechanic in that game. It's not even levels because it's a story-based game. Every single segment is a new thing. It never repeats. And you're over in an hour and a half into 2 hours, and it's like you don't have value in terms of time, but just in quality is incredible. That game is like buying a fucking steak pretty much. And it's like, well, you can go to a buffet, but like, man, you get this like amazing steak, high quality game. I've played the game multiple times, and I would stream it, but it almost does it a disservice because you kind of have to play it yourself because it's a game. It's so much about how that game plays. And again, I talk about that game so much and praise it so much, and it's a 1.5 hour experience. It's crazy. You can literally beat it and refund it and have the full experience. Anyway, autism.